Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, as I mentioned in the last week, the case statement is one of the statements that can be used to manage the else if statements, or like this kind of statements in an easier manner, right? So like if you have go through this codings, now you will see like there are many different levels and many different writings using a lot of else's and a lot of ifs, right? So without going in this deep or like this descriptive, we can easily write we can easily write the same algorithm, the very same program, using a statement called case. So what is the nature of the case? It is being shown over here. So the program has started in the very same way, given a particular name, an input and output within brackets and semicolon at the end. So it's very some of the usual way that we are writing or we are starting the program. And then they have used the keyword the var to declare the variables. So there are two variables, which is marks and the grade. Marks is on integer data type and the grade is on char data type. And then they have created the begin and end block to identify what's the beginning and the end of our algorithm. So in the very same way, they have written the write ln by saying enter mark, and they are reading it to the variable called marks. So when you execute this, you will be seeing a particular screen, right? So on the screen, you will be given the phrase enter mark, right? So then user will be like enter some particular mark, and that will be read to the variable called marks, right? So that is what simply happens. And it is the same thing. It is the same thing that happens in the previous program, the one you have written on your book. So see, like they are asking the same thing, write ln, enter marks, read it to the m. So this enter marks, it will show something like this, and it will read that marks to the m. It is an integer type of variable. So in the case statement, instead of m, we use marks, and which is an integer variable. So whatever the user is being input, it will be read to the marks variable, right? So the same thing happens in that two variables. But then after, we have used a particular reserve word or a keyword called case, right? So after the case, we have written the variable for the case statement, right? So in this scenario, we have taken the variable marks, which includes the value which is given by the user, right? So that variable is used, and again there is a keyword called of, right? So that is the nature of the case structure, right? The word case is there, then the particular variable is there, which is which is considered as the variable of the case structure. Then the keyword of is there, and then after they have used something like this, 0.34, right? So 0.34, that indicates a particular range for this particular variable, right? So that means marks is considered, or like it is been validated, or it is been checked that this marks is in between the values 0 and 34. So that is what meant by this notation, 0.34. බිඳුවේ ඉඳලා 34 අතරද කියන එක බලන්න කියන එක තමයි උතන කරන්නේ. කියන්නේ this is a particular condition that we have used in the else if statements, right? So if it is in between 0 to 34, this particular value of the marks variable, what they are saying is they are asking us to assign the string value w. Actually, we can consider it as a char value because the grade is being considered as a char value, right? So that w char value is assigned to the variable called grade, right? So they particularly what they have simply done is the marks given by the user, they check it whether it is in between 0 and 34 from this. If so, the value w is given to the variable called grade. So if it is not the case, if the mark is not in between 0 to 34, they go to the next value range, which is 35 to 49. If so, the value s is given to the grade, right? So if not, they go to the next range. Likewise, from 0 to the 100, they are checking in between which range that the user input marks value is in between, right? Mona range එකේද user දීපු value එක තියෙන්නේ කියලා. So according to that, the particular grade or the particular value is assigned to the variable called grade. Now here in this case, they have used the else word as well, which is not a compulsory one. Right, so what they are saying is, if the marks is not in any of these ranges, if the mark is not in this, if the mark is not in any of these ranges, means the user has entered an invalid mark. That means either a negative value or a positive value, which is larger than 0, larger than 100. So that means it is an invalid mark. So in that case, they are asked the program to write the error message saying invalid marks. So if you input a negative value or something larger than 100, you will be getting the output saying invalid mark, right? Then the program ends, right? So, and importantly, this end keyword determine the end of the case statement, right? So this begin and end determines the scope of the program, or like what is the starting point of the algorithm and what is the ending point of the algorithm. But this end indicates the end of the case statement. So after that, they have used a if condition to determine whether the marks that is being insert is larger than 0 and less than 100. So this is a good example that you can see we can write two conditions at one particular if condition, right? එහෙමත් ලියන්න පුළුවන්, right? So why they are checking this? In case the user input an invalid mark, this statement will provide you false. That means you are not given any particular grade. You can only see this particular message, which is called the invalid marks, then the program ends. So if you are given a particular value which is in between 0 and 100, so it flows one of these ranges. So according to that, one of these grades are being assigned to the grade variable, right? මේ මොකක් හරි grade එක තැනකදී grade කියන එකනට value එකක් හම්බෙනවා. valid mark එකක් නම් දීලා තියෙනවා. If so, they are going to display this particular phrase. That means grade is, then the grade will be shown, whether it is A, B, C, S, or W. So then it is end. Okay, people, is that clear? Yes, everyone, is it clear? Right, okay. All right, so since you have written the Pascal code, people just confirm me, is this the one, like we are done with this Pascal code, right? We haven't written anything below this, right? So this is this the last code that we wrote on your book? This particular code, is it the last one? Okay, people, yeah, right, okay. So like then put a star and write this sentence. I'll read you the sentence. Put a star and say, okay, say it like this, people. Above Pascal code, you put a star and write this. Above Pascal code can be written, above Pascal code can be written using the case statement, using the case statement, using the case statement, using the case statement, as shown below, as shown below. Right, so then you can copy the Pascal code. right? So let me know when you're done, people. Okay, people, I think everyone is done. So let's move to the next section. So next is about the repetition. So now, so far we have talked about how a selection is handled. So selection is all about if condition. And there are several ways that we can write the if condition. We discuss about those things. We get to know that the if condition can be written with just the only with the if condition, and we can write it with if and else, as well as we can write it with if and else if, right? Likewise, we can manage the if condition in many different ways according to the algorithm that is given to us. Now, you are familiar with the repetition as well, right? So I can remember when you are like drawing the flow chart, we draw a lot of scenarios regarding the repetition. Repetition means some of the instructions in the algorithm happens again and again due to a particular condition. So when it comes to the repetitions illustrated to be used in the Pascal programs, there are different kinds of structures that we can use to represent the repetition. Now in pseudocode, we use a common structure called while to represent a repetition. Here in the Pascal, you will find the while structure as well. Other than that, you will be finding another two structures, which is called the for structure, and the other one is called the repeat until structure. All right. So first of all, let's talk about how the for do structure or the for structure is working. So now remember, when it comes to the for structure, for structure cannot be used to represent all kind of iterations, any kind of iterations. Like it has some limitations. For structure is made to be used as a counting loop, right? Count කරන කෙනෙක් විදිහට. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට එකින් එක increase වෙන nature එකක් නම් තියෙන්නේ අපේ algorithm එකේ for structure එක පාවිච්චි කරගන්න පුළුවන්. එකින් එක decrease වෙන nature එකක් නම් තියෙන්නේ for structure එක පාවිච්චි කරගන්න පුළුවන්. But there are certain situations we can't handle that iteration using the for structure. Like as an example, if you can remember the algorithm that we use to make a tea, right? So there we don't have a particular kind of an increment. එකින් එක වැඩි වෙන එකක් අපි ගාව තිබුණේ නැහැ. අපි tea එක හදන example එකේදී ඔයගලන්ට මතක ඇති. We used, like what we have done is like we mix all these things and we create the tea and we test the taste. If the taste is not satisfactory, we add some sugar and we taste it again. So like adding the sugar is not mentioning you, or like it's not illustrating like adding the sugar one by one. Like we don't know what's the quantity, or like we just add some random amount of sugar and we test the taste, right? So that kind of an iteration cannot be handled by the for loop. For loop is there to handle a systematic iteration, which increase one by one or which decrease one by one, right? You will have you will have a clear, much clearer idea, like when it comes to the examples as well. So before that, I'll take you to the structure of the for. So this is the structure of the for. Actually, this is the structure. So here they are using the keyword called for to identify that this is an iterative structure. So that is the first keyword that you have to use when you are writing the for structure. Then in the for structure, you have to use a particular variable called x, or some particular name can be given to it. Any particular name can be given to it according to the rules that we have learned. So that rule or that variable must be given an initial value, right? So in this case, you can see x colon equal 1 is given, right? So x colon equal 1 is given means in the for structure, the variable that they are considering is x. It is starting from the value 1. And then they are using another keyword called to indicate the end of that x value, right? Starting value එක එයා end වෙන්නේ කොතනටද නැත්නම් range වෙන්නේ කොතනටද කියන එක indicate කරගන්න තමයි to එක පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. So after the word to, they are defining the ending value of the x. This is the ending value of the x, right? Then again, they are using a particular keyword called do. So for keyword is used, then the variable, initial value of the variable is given, which indicates what is the starting value of that variable, then the word to, then the ending value of that variable, here the x, then the word do. So what happens during the execution is like when the iteration starts, in the first iteration, value of the x is set as 1. මෙතන එක දීලා තියෙන නිසා x ගේ value එක එකෙන් තමයි පටන් ගන්න. එකෙන් පටන් අරගෙන එක සැරයක් එයාට repeat කරන්න කියලා තියෙන statement ටික repeat කරනවා. Then the value of the x will be increased by a 1. That means x will increase into 2. The existing value is 1, then it will become 2. එකකින් වැඩි වෙනවා. එක තියෙන එක දෙක වෙනවා. Then it will repeat the statements under it again. Then x is going to become 3. Then repeat the statements again. Then x is going to become 4. Then repeat the statements again. Then x is going to become 5. Repeat the statements again. Then after, it stops the repetition. Because according to the for loop, it says start the iteration when the value of x is 1, end the iteration when the x value is 5. Right? So if you count how many repetitions has happened with the for loop, it is easy. So you can count the values that is being given to the x. So x is start from 1. So like you can count from 1 to 5, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see there are 5 iterations, or 5 number of repetitions has happened during the execution. Okay, people, is that clear? The concept? How the for is working? කොහොමද for වැඩ කරන්නේ කියන එක. Is it clear? Okay. Right. So how about the second example, people? What's the starting value of the x? And what are the other values that the x is going to take? In the first iteration, what's the value of the x? Yes, yes. It's 0. So like first iteration, the value of x is 0. What's the value of the x in the next iteration? ඊළඟ iteration එකේදී x ගේ value එක Yes, not the 5. Next iteration එකේදී value එක it starts from the 0, goes until the 4. So if it is start from 0, ඊළඟ iteration එකේදී x ගේ value එක it's going to be 1. මොකද එයා පටන් ගන්නේ 0 වලින්, then it becomes 1. ඊළඟ iteration එකේදී x ගේ value එක it's become 2. Then it's become 3. Then it's become 4. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear? Okay. So how about the third example? What's the starting value of the x? What's the starting value of the x? Yeah, yes, it is 5. Then after 5, what's the next value that the x are going to have? Yeah, it's 6. So later it will have 7. Then it will have 8. Then 9. Then 10. Right? So how many iterations are there? There are 6 iterations, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 6 iterations are happening during that execution. Okay. Now let's see let's look into the example over here. Right, so what they are trying to do is they are trying to print the values from 1 to 10. So the program starts with the keyword program, then it says print 10 numbers. So it indicates by NOS. And input, output is there. So what do you think about this name? Is it correct? Is it according to the rules that is given in the Pascal? Yes, people? Print 10 NOS, is it a valid program name or is it an incorrect one? How we are going to determine whether it is a valid one or not? So if it is a valid name, it should start from a letter. So yes, it is starting from a letter, and rest of the characters must be a letter or a number or an underscore. So rest of the characters are letters and numbers only in here. So it is a valid one. Right? So then they have introduced or initiate one particular variable, which is count, and the value of the data type of the count is taken as integer. Right? So then the keyword begin is there. So inside it says for count colon equal 1 to 10 do. So how this for loop is behaving? What's the starting value of the count? Yes, people, what's the starting value of the count? That's right. Yes, it is 1. And from 1, the value of the count will be increased up to 10. Like first iteration, it is 1. Second iteration, it is 2. Third iteration, it is 3, likewise. So now what will happen is, so here after the for loop, they have written write ln count and a semicolon is there. So like we learn in the if statement, the first line after the for structure, is considered as the statement which belongs to the for structure. Right? For structure එකට යටින් ලියන පළවෙනි line එක කොහොමත් for structure එකට අයිති. Right? So this is the statement that is going to repeat. So for how many times this is going to repeat? It write the count when the count is 1. Then again increase the value of the count by 1. That means count will become 2. Then it write the count's value again. That means it writes the value 2. Then increase the value of the count by 1. Then write the value of the count again. That is 3. So increase the value of the count by 1 and write the value of the count again. That is 4. Then increase the value of the count by 1. Then write that value again. So likewise, it will write the value of the count until it becomes 10. Right? So in your screen, according to the first iteration, this writes 1. Because it is asked you to write the value of the count always. So count starts from 1. So 1 will be written. Then on the screen, 2 will be written. Because once this is happened, the value of the count is increased by 1. So that means this 1 is going to become 2. So here we are asking write the value of the count. So it will write 2. Then again goes and the value of the count increase into 3. So 3 will be written over here. Right? So likewise, it goes up to 10. Right? So 1 to 10, it is being gone. So once the count reaches the value 10, it writes the value 10 on the screen using this write ln. Then it stops. That means then it is being exit from the for loop. The reason is it is being reached to the very end of the for loop. For එකේ අන්තිම තැනට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ 10. For count එක 10 වෙනවා කියන්නේ for එක 10 වතාවක් repeat වෙලා ඉවර වෙනවා කියන එක. එතකොට මේ statement එක 10 වතාවක් repeat වෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ for loop එකෙන් එළියට එනවා. Then the program will be end. ළමයි, is that clear? Okay. Right. So let's write about these things. So we'll start from here. Have the heading repetition. And you can have the Roman number 1, for do structure first method. Right. So if you have written the headings, you can straight away copy the table. Once you copy the table, write the example underneath it. Let me know when you are done, people. Okay, I'm scrolling up a little. If you miss anything, just let me know. You have to write down the example as well. Right, Lamai, are we done? Lamai, ලියාගෙන ඉවරද? Right. Okay. So, is there anyone who is still writing? All right. So, moving forward, now the next. Yeah, before we move to the next one, people, there is a small marking that you need to do. So, mark this variable, and you better indicate it like this. Yeah. So write it like this. So like mark the count and indicate it as variable used in the for loop. Right. And again, once you done that, it's better you draw the output of this program. So output is what? Start from 1, 2, 3. So likewise, you have to write it up to 10. Don't put the dots. You have to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 up to 10. So that will be your output. Right. So mark it as output. Right. Then draw the output as well. Hansaka, I just it's kind of a monitor that I draw, like, so don't make it a mistake. It's kind of a stand that I'm trying to indicate. This is kind of a monitor, right? So that's why I'm having this. So you don't need to write anything inside it. Hari, lamai, are we done? Right. So we are moving forward. Okay, so the next one, it's very easy for you to understand. So like it's a second method of the for do loop. So the earlier one is talking about an increment. So like it increase one by one, like from 1 to 5. It means x is going to increase like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the second method is like the down to method. Like here they have said 4, x initial value is given, it is 10. Then they have used the word down to 5. Then do. So that means x is starting from the 10 and it is decreasing 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. So it is when the down to word is used with the x, with the for loop, the initial value of the x should be a bigger one and the ending value of the x should be a smaller one. Earlier, the starting value of the x is a small one, right? So they had 1, and the ending value of the x is a bigger one, a larger one. So in the second method, it goes the other way around because it is decreasing one by one, right? So at the first iteration, x will be 10, and in the next iteration, x will be 9, 8, 7. Likewise, it will goes up to 5, right? So the same iteration happens, but this time the value of the x will be decreased per iteration. Okay, is that clear, everyone? It's the same pattern. It's the same logic, but the x is decreasing on this time. That is the only difference. Okay, right. So let's write this down. This is the second method. Yeah, Manisha, it's like this. In the second method, it's going to be the x value is starting from a bigger value, and decrease it one by one up to the ending value that is being mentioned in the for loop. So here it says for x colon equal 10, that means the starting value of the x is 10, and decreasing it up to the 5. So decrement is indicated by down to keyword. So 10 down to 5. So its x value is started by 10. In the next iteration, it will become 9. And the next iteration, it will become 8. So likewise, 7, 6, and it will reach 5 as the last value. So like per iteration, one value will be decremented. So the value will be decremented by a 1. Is that clear? Right. Okay. So let's write this down. For the loop. So like previous, write the table. And as well as you have to write the example. Right, are we done, everyone? Okay. Right, now look at this. The very last program that is given to you. Right, so it is over here. There is a very important part that you need to understand. So I have typed it in this particular place. So the program has started normally. As we know, the name of the program is total underscore average. And there are three variables which are in the integer type. And there is a one particular variable in real type, right? And in between the begin and the end, the main begin and the end, what we have here is now we have given an initial value for the total as 0. Now look at the for loop. For I colon equal 1 to 10 do. So how the value of the I is going to change? It starts from 1 and goes up to 10. Right? It starts from 1, goes up to 10. So I is going from 1 to 10. So that means that 10 times it's going to be repeat. The for loop statements are going to be repeated 10 times. And look closely. This is the content of the for loop. Now you can see there's a word called begin over here and a word called end over here. This begin and end belongs to the for loop. And the reason why they have used a begin and end for the for loop, it is because for loop contains more than one statement inside it. දැන් කලින් වෙලාවල් වලදී for loop එකට තිබුණේ එක statement එකයි. ඒක නිසා for loop එකට අමුතුවෙන් begin and end එකක් ඕන උනේ නැහැ. like for loop එක ලියලා තියෙනවා. Right after it we have a one particular statement, so obviously it's going to belong to the for loop. Now in this example there are three things to be repeated, right? තුනක් repeat කරන්න දෙනවා. statement තුනක් for loop එක ඇතුලේ. So for that reason we need a separate begin and an end to indicate what's the begin of the for loop and what's the end of the for loop. So 4 starts from here, I colon equal 1 to 10 do, then write in the enter number and user will be enter a number, then that number will be read to the variable called num, and that num will be added to the variable called total. So මේ statement තුන නැවත සිද්ධ වෙනවා for loop එක ඇතුලේ 10 වතාවක්. Right? So when I run this program, you can see they are asking for a number. Right? So I'm giving 10. Then they ask it again. Right? So asking it again means මුලින්ම මම දැක්ක enter number කියන එක. එතකොට මම number එකක් දුන්නා. ඒ number එක num කියන කෙනාට read කරගත්තා. Then it is added to the variable called total. දැන් මගේ total එක 10යි. So then I වල value එක 2 වලට increase වෙනවා. increase වෙලා ආයි සැරයක් මට මෙයාව පෙන්නනවා. ඒක තමයි මේ දෙවෙනියට මම දකින්නේ enter number. So I give 20. So 20 කියන එක්කෙනාව num කියන එකට read කරගන්නවා. Then after it will be added with the total, existing total. දැන් මගේ existing total එක 10. 10 වලට 20 add වෙනවා. That means existing total will be 30 now. Once I press enter again, it asks another number. So if I give 30, so 30 will be read into the variable num, and that 30 will be added to the total again. So now total is 30 plus 30, that means 60. Right? So likewise, whenever I am giving these values, those values will be read to the variable called num and added to the existing total. Right? එකනේ හැම වෙලාවෙම මම දෙන number එක num කියන variable එකට read කරලා ඒ වෙලාවෙම ඒ num කියන variable එකේ තියෙන value එක total එකට add කරගන්නවා. ඒ වෙලාවෙ. ඒක 10 වතාවක් වෙනකොට total එකට 10 වතාවක් numbers එකතු වෙනවා එකින් එක. The total එක update වෙවි යනවා. Right? So when it reaches to the 100 over here as my last input, all 10 numbers were added to the total along the algorithm. So then what it does, when the I reaches 10, means the program has taken 10 numbers and now it is being added to the total and update the total during the execution. So once it reaches 10, then it ends. Then it goes to the next line, which says divide total. Total means the final total. මේ total එක update වෙවි නේ ආවේ. 10 දුන්නම total එක 10යි. 20 දුන්නම 10ට 20 එකතු වෙනවා 30යි. දැන් ඒතර total එක 30යි. එස 30 දුන්නම total එක 30යි, number එකක් 30යි, 30ට 30 එකතු වෙනවා 60යි. ඊට පස්සේ 40 කියලා දුන්නම total එකට 40 එකතු වෙනවා 60ට 40 එකතු වෙනවා 100යි. ඒ විදිහට මම numbers 10 දුන්නම ඒ 10 total එකට add වෙවි update වෙවි එනවා. So final total will be there after 10 iterations, and it is asked to be divided by y, asked to be divided by I. I means the last value of the I, that means 10. මොකද I 10 සැරයක් කරකිනකොට I ගේ value එක 10 වෙලා තමයි දැන් නතර වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. So final total එක බෙදෙන්නේ 10න්. ඒ කියන්නේ numbers 10ක් ඉල්ල ගන්නවා ඒක 10න් බෙදෙනවා. So it will give you the average. So then they ask you to display the total and display the average. So when I press enter, it will show you the total as 550. It will show you the average as 5.5. That means 550 divided by 10. Right? So what you need to understand is, if there are more than one particular statement inside a structure, a structure එක මොන જાති එකක්ද කියන එක අදාළ නැහැ. ඒක if එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. It can be a for, it can be a value, it can be a while, it can be a repeat until, right? So any of these structures is going to have more than one statement inside it. You need a separate begin and an end to indicate those multiple statements, right? ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ book එකේ textbook එකේ තෝක indicate කරලා තියෙනවා. See, a block of statements in repetition. Right? So remember this fact. Right? So we'll copy this when we meet next time. Right? So then after we'll go and see what are the other iterative structures, and then we can continue the Pascal further. Right. So I'm going to end this session from this point for today. Right? So I'll meet you on next Friday for the very same time, physically, right? Then we'll continue the Pascal. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a very good night. I'm going to end the session from this point.